If you're not moving forward, you're falling behind, even if it feels like you're standing still. See, stagnation isn't peace. It's silent decay. The human soul wasn't made to coast, it was made to climb. Progress isn't some grand moment of glory. It's a quiet decision repeated daily in silence when no one's clapping. And the truth? Most people never get what they want because they don't do what they must. They wait. They wait for motivation, for energy, for the right time. But let me tell you something, if you're waiting for the perfect day, you're going to wait forever. Progress doesn't come to the most talented or the most educated. It comes to the most consistent. And consistency isn't natural. It's trained. It's forged in discipline. It's built when you get up tired, when you work with distractions, and when you act in spite of doubt. Let me give you the secret. You don't need more hours, more motivation, or more luck. You need better habits, sharper thinking, clearer priorities, because the real battle isn't out there. It's in here, between the ears. It's the war between comfort and calling, between what's easy and what's necessary. So the question is simple. Will today look just like yesterday? Or will today move you 1 inch closer to the life you say you want? That's what I want to talk about. How to make progress every day, no matter what. Let me tell you something I learned early in life. Discipline isn't about forcing your way through pain. No, discipline is remembering what you really want. That's the secret. See, in the moment, laziness feels good. It's comfortable. It's tempting. It whispers, you've done enough for today. But that kind of comfort is a thief. It robs you of the life you could have had. It robs you of the version of you that was built by vision and carved by action. Now, success, real success, that feels better. Better than rest, better than excuses, better than comfort. But you only taste that success if you remember why you wanted it in the first place. I remember when I was just starting out, trying to build a life that was better than the one I came from. I didn't have the discipline of a champion yet. I had excuses, I had distractions, I had moments where the bed felt better than the book, where television seemed more urgent than taking notes. But I also had a reason. I had a why. I wanted to provide for my family. I wanted freedom. I wanted to walk into a room and feel proud of who I had become. And I learned that the only way to get there was through discipline. Not for a week, not when I felt motivated, every day. Because discipline isn't a single act, it's a lifestyle. You see, when the alarm goes off early in the morning, the question isn't, do I feel like getting up? The question is, what do I really want? Do I want progress, or do I want to negotiate with the snooze button? Do I want to grow, or do I want to stay the same while life passes me by? The man who forgets his why will always choose the easy path, but the man who burns with purpose, he's unstoppable. He doesn't need to be pushed. He's pulled forward by a vision that's stronger than any excuse. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. When your actions align with your purpose, you feel powerful, you feel alive. Relapse. There's a certain confidence that comes when you know you're doing what needs to be done, even when it's hard. I always say, don't wait for it to get easier, get stronger. And the way you get stronger is by remembering day by day who you want to become. People sometimes ask me, how do I stay consistent when I don't feel like it? My answer is simple. Get emotional about your goals. Write them down. Speak them aloud. Look at them every day. Remind yourself who's counting on you, your family, your future, your legacy. Because once you forget the reason, the work starts to feel like a burden. But when you hold your reason close, the work becomes sacred. I remember working with a young man who told me he couldn't stay focused. He wanted to succeed, but he kept falling into the trap of distraction. I asked him, what's your why? He looked at me confused. I said, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to grow? He finally admitted, I want to retire my mother. Now that's a reason. That's a purpose that can wake you up in the morning. I told him to write that on his mirror, see it every day, and every time he felt like quitting, to remember that he wasn't just working for himself, he was working for someone he loved. That changed everything. When your reason is big enough, your excuses don't stand a chance. You begin to make decisions not based on comfort, but based on calling. You don't need motivation when you've got meaning. And let me tell you something else. The world won't wait for you to feel ready. Life moves fast. Opportunities come and go. Discipline is what keeps you in the race long enough to catch them. The greatest danger isn't failure, it's forgetting. Forgetting what you said you wanted, forgetting why you started, forgetting what it costs to quit. That's why every morning, before the chaos of the world begins, you've got to ground yourself. You've got to reconnect with your purpose. Maybe it's a quiet moment with a journal. Maybe it's a walk with your thoughts. Whatever it is, don't let the noise drown out your vision. Discipline isn't sexy, it's not flashy, but it is the foundation. The days you don't want to show up, but you do, that's when you're building something eternal. That's when your character is being shaped. Your reputation is being earned. Your dreams are being honored. And you do it not because it's easy, but because it matters. So don't wait for discipline to feel good. Make it familiar. Make it yours. Let it become the default setting of your life, because the man who chooses discipline once in a while will live with regret most of the time. But the man who chooses discipline every day will live with results. That's the real reward, not just what you get, but who you become. And the next time you're tempted to choose comfort over progress, just ask yourself, what do I really want? And let the answer lead you. Let me share something that changed the way I lived my life. There's no such thing as a neutral habit. You're either building yourself up or tearing yourself down. One choice at a time. We like to believe there's a middle ground, that we can coast for a while, take it easy, and life will somehow stay the same. But it doesn't. Life doesn't stay still. It moves. And if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. That's not philosophy. That's physics. That's psychology. That's reality. Every small decision you make today is casting a vote for the person you're becoming tomorrow. Every bite you take, every word you speak, every dollar you spend, every hour you waste or invest, it all adds up. And most people don't lose the game of life because of one big mistake. No, they lose it in inches. In tiny, invisible choices that seem harmless, seem neutral, but slowly drift them away from their goals. I remember a season in my life where I was working hard, but I wasn't being intentional. And that's dangerous. You can be active and still be unproductive. I was doing things, lots of things, but they weren't the right things. I thought I was maintaining, but in truth, I was declining. My energy was lower. My discipline started to crack. My vision got fuzzy. It wasn't dramatic, but it was deadly. And that's how most people lose the edge. Quietly, subtly, unknowingly. You see, habits are like compound interest. They either work for you or against you. Read 10 pages of a good book every day, and in a year, you'll have read over 3,000 pages. Watch 10 minutes of nonsense every day, and in a year, you'll have trained your brain to seek distraction over development. That's the difference between a mind that's sharp and one that's soft. One leads to wealth, the other leads to mediocrity. I used to tell people, your life will never rise higher than your daily routines. And that's the truth. You don't get what you wish for. So ask yourself, is this habit building me or is it breaking me? Because it's doing one or the other. If it's not expanding your capacity, it's shrinking it. If it's not challenging you, it's weakening you. If it's not stretching your vision, it's narrowing it. Think of your habits like bricks. Every action is a brick you lay on the foundation of your future. Are you building a palace or a prison? Are you constructing a life of freedom and wealth or a life of excuses and regret? That's the real work. And the tragedy is, Most people wait for a breakdown to begin the breakthrough. They wait until the bad habit steals their health, or ruins a relationship, or empties their bank account before they change. But the wise man doesn't wait for pain. He learns from patterns. He watches the direction his daily choices are taking him, and he makes the adjustments before it's too late. And I'll tell you something else. Passive living is expensive. It may not seem like it at first, but passivity steals your time, your clarity, your drive. It robs you of the momentum that success demands. I've seen too many talented people fall short, not because they lacked potential, but because they lacked intention. They let life happen to them instead of deciding how they would happen to life. So here's the question. Are your habits compounding or collapsing? When you wake up, what's the first thing you do? That tiny act is setting the tone for your entire day. When you get overwhelmed, do you reach for growth or escape? That moment is shaping your resilience. When you talk to yourself, are your words lifting you or limiting you? Because those internal conversations, they matter. They're training your subconscious to either build faith or feed fear. I remember meeting a man who had a dream of starting his own business. He had the skills. He had the idea, but every evening after work, he'd sit on the couch, scroll through his phone, and tell himself he was unwinding. A year later, the dream was still a dream. I told him that couch is costing you your future. He didn't see it then, but over time, he started replacing 30 minutes of scrolling with 30 minutes of studying. And do you know what happened? Within 6 months, he had launched his side business. Within a year, he had replaced his job. Why? Because he stopped choosing habits that broke him and started choosing habits that built him. That's the formula. Don't just ask, is this easy? Ask, is this edifying? Don't just ask, do I want to do this? Ask, will this take me where I want to go? Your future is being built by the decisions you make when no one's watching. The world will see your results, but only you will know the habits that created them. So today, make the commitment. If it's not building me, I won't keep it. If it's not growing me, it's not staying, because you weren't made to coast, you were made to climb. And progress only comes to those who are intentional about every step. Let me tell you one of the simplest, most powerful truths I've ever learned in this journey towards success. You don't need to take giant leaps to change your life. You just need to stack small wins every single day. That's it. Progress doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't always show up in grand announcements or fireworks. Sometimes it looks like choosing the stairs instead of the elevator. Sometimes it looks like reading 10 pages when you're tired, or finishing a task you could have left for tomorrow. It may not look like much in the moment, but over time, these small victories, they become unstoppable momentum. One of the biggest traps people fall into is believing that transformation requires some monumental act, that you've got to completely overhaul your life overnight. And when they can't do that, they quit. But that's not how it works. Real change is quiet. It's subtle. It builds in layers. You win the day by winning the moment. You win the year by winning enough of those days. And you build a life of wealth, wisdom, and purpose, one intentional act at a time. There was a period in my life where I was overwhelmed. I had dreams, big ones, but I felt paralyzed by how far they seemed. I wanted to improve my finances, expand my influence, grow my mind, but I didn't know where to start. So I started small. I decided I wouldn't go to bed without earning at least one personal win. That could be anything. A workout, a new idea, a tough phone call I'd been avoiding, a journal entry to sharpen my clarity. It didn't matter how small it was. What mattered was the intention behind it. That shift in mindset changed everything, because you see, progress is a confidence game, and small wins build that confidence. When you show up for yourself daily, consistently, you begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, discipline becomes easier. Decision-making becomes sharper. And suddenly the dream that felt distant starts feeling doable. I remember mentoring a young man who wanted to write a book. He told me he had this great idea, but never seemed to have the time to write. So I asked him, "Can you write 1 paragraph a day?" He laughed. "Of course," he said, "but that's not enough." I said, "That's not the point. 1 paragraph a day means 30 paragraphs in a month. That's momentum. That's progress." And do you know what happened? He wrote that paragraph every day for 6 months, and by the end of the year, he had finished his first book. Not because he was the fastest or most talented, but because he stacked small wins with ruthless consistency. That's the formula. Don't try to leap the mountain. Just keep climbing. Every day, ask yourself, what's one thing I can finish today that moves me forward? What's one thing I can do that proves I'm becoming who I said I want to be? And then do it, no matter how small. Because success isn't made in huge moments. It's made in quiet discipline. You want to build wealth? Great. Start by tracking your expenses daily. It takes 5 minutes. You want to improve your health? Fantastic. Do 10 push-ups every morning. You want to grow your mind? Read 2 pages tonight. You want stronger relationships? Send 1 kind message to someone you care about. Stack these wins, because small hinges swing big doors. And I'll tell you something else. When you win early, you tend to win more. I always made it a habit to start my day with a completed task. It didn't have to be big. Sometimes it was making the bed or writing down my goals or going for a brisk walk. But that first win set the tone for the rest of the day. It reminded me that I was in control, that I was not drifting, I was directing. Too many people wait for motivation to show up before they act. But the truth is, action creates motivation. You don't feel like it and then do it. You do it and then you feel like doing more. That's the beauty of small wins. They ignite something inside you. They awaken momentum. And once momentum is on your side, it's hard to stop. Now, don't confuse small with insignificant. That's where people go wrong. They think this won't matter, so they skip it. But everything matters. Every day you skip a win, you're telling your future self they don't matter. Every day you show up even when it's inconvenient. You're building a version of yourself that can handle success, because success isn't about one heroic effort. It's about the character you build when no one's watching. It's about discipline in the details. So, here's what I want to leave you with. Don't underestimate the power of today's win. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for the big break. Stack 1 win today, then another tomorrow, and keep stacking. That's how you build a life that doesn't just survive, it thrives. Excuses, they're clever, aren't they? They dress themselves up like logic. They sound like protection. They wear the voice of reason, but underneath, they're thieves. Thieves of time, of growth, of greatness. And worst of all, they're internal. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't come from the outside, they come from you. Excuses are self-sabotage wrapped in comfort. And let me tell you something hard but true. The better you are at making excuses, the less progress you'll ever make. I used to be full of them. Too tired, too busy, not the right time, not enough resources, too much going on. I had a catalog of reasons why I couldn't, shouldn't, or wouldn't take action. And I was convinced I was being practical. But do you know what I was really being? Stuck, broke, and blind to my own limitations. The day everything changed for me was the day I realized this. Every excuse is a small lie I tell myself to stay comfortable. And progress is never born in comfort. See, success demands honesty, ruthless honesty. You've got to call your bluff. You've got to recognize when you're stalling, when you're spinning stories instead of taking steps. Because every time you make an excuse, you strengthen the part of you that avoids responsibility. And every time you take action, even imperfect action, you strengthen the part of you that builds the future. Think about it. When you say, I don't have time, what you're really saying is, it's not a priority, and that's fine as long as you own it. But don't pretend you want growth while feeding the habits of stagnation. Don't say you want to be wealthy while spending your evenings numbing yourself with distractions. Don't say you want health while negotiating with every workout. There's no progress in pretend. If it matters, do it. No stories, no delays. I remember mentoring a young man who said he wanted to start a business. He had the ideas, the talent, and even a small amount of capital saved. But every week he had a new reason why he hadn't started. I'm researching. I'm waiting for the perfect name. I need to polish the plan. Eventually I told him what you need is to stop being so perfect and start being in motion. He didn't need another month of planning. He needed one day of real action, one phone call, one conversation, one decision. That's how progress works. It's pursued, not postponed. I see people with dreams that have been collecting dust for years because they're waiting for perfect timing. Let me tell you, perfect timing is a myth. Conditions will never feel ideal. The stars won't align just for you. If you want to make progress, you have to act in spite of your excuses. That's the real test. That's where growth happens. Excuses are tempting because they let you keep your identity without confronting your flaws. But here's the deal. If you want to change your life, you have to change your standards. And excuses are the lowest standard you can accept. They feel safe, but they're not. They cost you time. They cost you money. They cost you the person you could have become. Now, I'm not saying life doesn't bring obstacles. Of course it does. But there's a difference between an obstacle and an excuse. An obstacle is real, a financial crisis, a health emergency, a loss. An excuse is manufactured. An obstacle can slow you down. An excuse stops you cold. And the most successful people I've known, they face the same obstacles everyone else does. But they don't pile excuses on top of them. They use the challenge as fuel, not as justification for delay. Do you want to know what freedom really feels like? It's not found in comfort, it's found in control. The moment you take back your power from your excuses, you begin to live intentionally. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer wish, you work. And you realize that progress is always available. It's just waiting for your decision. And let's be clear. You don't need to make massive leaps today. You just need to stop lying to yourself about why you haven't started. Get honest. What have you been avoiding? What story have you been telling? What dream have you placed on the shelf labeled someday? Someday is not on the calendar, but today is. Today is always available. And today is when progress begins. So the next time your mind offers you an excuse, don't accept it. Challenge it. Ask yourself, is this true or is this just comfort dressed as reason? Refuse to let weak thinking make strong decisions for you. Replace excuses with actions. Replace stories with results. Because at the end of the day, it won't be your excuses that build your legacy. It'll be the steps you took when it would have been easier not to. It'll be the discipline to move when comfort said stop. It'll be the refusal to let the small voice of doubt silence the roar of your potential. So remember this. Every excuse is a brick in the wall between you and your future. Tear down the wall, one action at a time. If you really want to know where your life is headed, don't ask for a prediction. Look at your daily routine. The truth is, your life is not shaped by your wishes, your dreams, or even your goals. It's shaped by what you do consistently, day in and day out. That's where your real power lies. Your routine, more than anything else, reveals your trajectory. You can tell me what you want, what you hope, even what you pray for, but show me how you spend your morning, and I'll show you the future you're building. It's an uncomfortable truth for many, but a liberating one for those who embrace it. Because if your habits are what builds your destiny, that means you're in control. Not your background, not your boss, not the government, you. That's the best news in the world because it puts the power back where it belongs, in your hands. The challenge is most people underestimate the compounding power of their small daily actions. They believe the future is made of big breaks and sudden luck, but it's not. It's made of tiny decisions that stack up over time, quietly, consistently, like bricks in a wall. When I started out, I was broke physically, financially, and mentally. And at the time, I thought the solution was somewhere out there, a bigger opportunity, a better job, a new city. But someone wiser than me handed me a mirror and said, "The problem isn't out there. The problem is your routine." That hit me like a freight train. I was waiting for success while living a schedule that invited failure. My mornings were lazy, my thoughts were unfocused, my energy was scattered, and then I realized the way I spent each day was predicting my future, and that future wasn't looking too good. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for life to hand me something better. I was going to earn it by transforming the way I showed up daily. I started waking up with intention. I began the day feeding my mind with wisdom, books, mentors, journals. I carved out space for clarity before the noise of the world could rush in. I scheduled time for growth, even when I was tired, especially when I was tired, because I knew how I structured my day would determine what kind of man I became. Let me ask you, what does your morning routine say about your future? Are you starting the day with purpose? Or are you waking up just to survive? Are your habits aligned with the person you want to become, or are they leftovers from the person you used to be? You can't have the destiny of a disciplined man with the routine of a distracted one. You can't live an intentional life with accidental habits. Your calendar is not just a list of tasks. It's a map of your values. If there's no time for growth on it, then growth is not truly a priority. If your time is filled with mindless scrolling, reactive decisions, and busyness without progress, then that's your future too. Scattered, shallow, unfulfilled. But if you build in time for thinking, reading, working on your craft, nurturing relationships, strengthening your health, then that's what your life will start to reflect. That's the secret. Not more effort, better routine. Wealth is not just money. It's a result of accumulated habits. Discipline in your finances, discipline in your learning, discipline in your associations, discipline in your thinking. These things don't arrive with fanfare. They're forged quietly in your schedule. The person who takes 10 minutes a day to plan will outperform the one who hustles blindly for 10 hours. Why? Because strategy beats sweat when the mind is sharp. Success is not an event, it's a lifestyle. It's not something you achieve and then rest on. It's something you live into every day. And your routine is the foundation. You want to change your life? Don't start with your goals. Start with your day. What do you do when you wake up? What do you listen to? Who do you talk to? What do you tolerate? These small answers form the big picture. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just begin with intention. Replace a weak habit with a strong one. Trade 1 hour of noise for 1 hour of clarity. Turn one day of drifting into a day of focus. Stack those days together and soon you'll look around and realize you've changed because your routine changed first. Remember, life doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your patterns. And your routine is your pattern. Make it count. Because if your daily routine is a mirror of your destiny, the reflection is yours to shape. Comparison is one of the most subtle, yet most destructive enemies of progress. It creeps in quietly, often dressed in admiration, and slowly begins to eat away at your consistency. You look at someone else's journey, their highlight reel, their breakthroughs, and suddenly, what once felt like progress now feels like delay. What once inspired you now discourages you. That's the danger, not because others are doing better, but because you're judging your life with their measuring stick. You see, everyone has their own mountain to climb. Some take the steep path, some take the winding road. Some are on mile 10, while you're just on mile 2. But the only mistake is thinking you're supposed to be on their timeline. You're not. Life is not a race against others. It's a race against your own potential. And if you want to make consistent progress, you've got to stop glancing sideways and keep your eyes on your own path. I remember when I first started working on myself, I had friends who were already ahead of me, financially, socially, mentally. They had nicer homes, drove better cars, seemed to have it all figured out. And there I was, trying to scrape together a few wins, trying to get one day right. I felt behind. But then I realized something powerful. I wasn't behind. I was beginning. And beginnings don't look like endings. That changed everything for me. I stopped trying to catch up to someone else's story and started writing my own. You've got to learn how to measure yourself correctly. Because the wrong measurement leads to the wrong mindset. And the wrong mindset leads to wrong actions or no action at all. See, comparison doesn't just make you feel behind, it convinces you to quit. And once you quit showing up daily, progress stops. And what could have been a breakthrough month becomes just another month lost to doubt. Consistency, the real fuel of success, thrives in clarity, but comparison muddies the water. It tells you your effort isn't enough, your pace is too slow, your journey too crooked. That's a lie. The truth is, success is not a straight line. It's a commitment to improvement, no matter the pace. You might move slower than others, but if you keep moving, you'll outlast most of them. The hare always looks impressive at the start, but it's the tortoise with discipline who finishes the race. If you're doing the work, building the habits, investing in your mind, showing up with intention, then you're winning. Don't let someone else's chapter 20 make you doubt your chapter 3. It's not fair to your future. You're not running their race, you're climbing your mountain. And that climb requires focus, not just effort, but directed effort. And nothing scatters focus more than comparison. Even in business, I saw it play out constantly. One man builds slowly but consistently. He studies, plans, saves, reinvests. Another flashes success quickly. Big office, nice car, lots of noise. But a few years later, the quiet builder has created something sustainable while the flashy one fizzles out. Why? Because the first man stayed true to his process. He wasn't distracted by the appearance of success. He kept stacking small wins day after day. And that's the secret. Consistency doesn't always look exciting in the moment, but it compounds in a way that nothing else can. You've got to become loyal to your progress, not your position. Loyal to the habits, the systems, the daily commitments that move you forward, not to how you look compared to someone else. Progress isn't always visible. Sometimes it's happening under the surface. When you say no to a distraction, when you keep a promise to yourself, when you choose growth over comfort. Those invisible victories, they're the real one. They're the foundation of every breakthrough. So stop watching everyone else's race. Start showing up for yours. If you want to compare anything, compare who you are today to who you were last month. Compare your ability to focus now versus 6 months ago. Compare your discipline, your patience, your resilience. That's the only competition worth tracking. That's the only scoreboard that matters, because the moment you stop chasing someone else's path, you finally start walking your own with power. And that's when things change, not just around you, but inside you. You start to trust yourself. You stop second guessing. You find rhythm. You find peace. And from that place, progress becomes inevitable. So the next time comparison tries to creep in, remember this. It's not about being the best compared to others. It's about being better than you were. That's where your freedom is. That's where your power is. That's where your future is built. Everyone wants success. Everyone dreams of the rewards, the wealth, the impact, the legacy. But if you study the lives of those who actually built something meaningful, something lasting, you'll find one common thread running through every story: consistency. Not brilliance, not luck, not even talent. Just the simple, often unglamorous act of showing up again and again and again. See, it's easy to be disciplined once. Anyone can have a good day. Anyone can wake up early once, hit the gym once, work hard once. But the man who builds a legacy is not the one who has a good day. He's the one who stacks thousands of them. He turns good days into habits, and those habits into a lifestyle. That's what separates dreamers from achievers. Dreamers wait for the perfect day to take action. Achievers build the day into something worth repeating. I've seen many people get fired up for a day or two after a seminar, after a book, after some motivational moment. They say, "I'm ready. I'm changing my life." And for a moment, they mean it. But when the emotion fades, so does their effort. Because emotion might get you started, but only consistency will keep you going. Emotion is the spark, but consistency is the firewood. Now let me tell you what I learned early in my journey. Results don't come from what you do occasionally. They come from what you do consistently. Wealth isn't built from one great investment. It's built from the habit of saving, learning, applying, adjusting, and repeating. Health doesn't come from one clean meal. It comes from the decision to eat with intention every single day. Growth doesn't come from reading one book. It comes from the daily discipline of feeding the mind, challenging the mind, and using the mind. When I first started working on myself, I didn't have a lot going for me. No money, no resources, no connections. But I had this idea. If I could just outlast the man I used to be, I could become someone different. So I made a deal with myself. No more fits and starts. No more crash diets for the soul. I would build small, steady disciplines. I would show up every day no matter what. And at first, the results weren't flashy, but over time, the invisible became visible. The effort compounded. The man I used to be was replaced with a new one. Built not by inspiration, but by repetition. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. It's not going to feel magical every day. In fact, most days won't feel magical at all. But you don't need magic, you need motion. You need to build the kind of life where action is not based on mood, but mission. Where you don't negotiate with your goals every morning. Where you've made the decision once and let discipline carry the rest. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you want to build financial independence. You're not going to get there because you read one book or made one smart move. You'll get there because you formed a daily habit. Studying money, managing it wisely, saying no to waste, yes to growth, yes to new skills. You show up to your wealth-building habits like clockwork, even when the market is down, even when others are spending foolishly, even when it's boring, because boring is where the wealth is built. The same principle applies to every area of your life. Want a great relationship? Consistency. Want to be a great leader? Consistency. Want to become someone the world respects, admires, follows? Consistency. You can't inspire others if you can't lead yourself. And self-leadership isn't flashy. It's not in the highlight reel. It's in the quiet decisions, the daily disciplines, the moments no one sees. I always say, the key to success is not intensity, it's consistency. Intensity burns fast. Consistency builds slow but never stops building. And that's the man who wins. The man who doesn't quit just because the results are slow. The man who sticks to the plan, even when he's tired, even when no one's watching, even when it feels like nothing is happening, because he knows something most don't. Progress isn't always visible. but it's always compounding. So today I want you to remember this. Your future is not created in a single moment of inspiration. It's created in the 1,000 ordinary days where you chose to keep going. That's how you separate yourself, not with a big leap, but with a quiet step, taken daily until the world can't ignore you. And that's why the ones who win are not the most gifted, they're just the most consistent. To move forward in life, you've got to outgrow who you used to be. You can't carry the dead weight of yesterday's mistakes, past fears, or old habits if you want to get to the next level. You see, every new level of success, every new chapter in your life demands a new version of yourself. The person who got you this far won't be the one who gets you further. And that's a hard truth for many people to accept. The challenge with progress is that we often try to take the old version of ourselves into new territory, and that's where the problem lies. The old you, the one that held on to bad habits, negative self-talk, poor decisions, and limited thinking, is exactly what's holding you back from the success you deserve. And until you have the discipline to let go of that version of yourself, you'll continue to stumble. You'll hit the same obstacles over and over again because the old you can't handle what the new you needs to overcome. This is where the power of self-discipline comes into play. It takes discipline to recognize that you've outgrown old behaviors and beliefs. It's easy to stick with what's familiar because it's comfortable. We like what we know, but comfort is the enemy of progress. You'll never get to the next level if you continue to rely on the mindset, habits, and attitudes that got you where you are today. That's why change is often uncomfortable. It's demanding you leave behind the version of yourself that no longer serves you. Let's take a practical example. Let's say you've been living paycheck to paycheck. You've had the same job, the same lifestyle, the same mindset for years. Now you want to build wealth. But the old you, the one who spent every dollar, who thought saving and investing were for other people, that version of you can't lead you to financial freedom. To get to that next level, you have to outgrow the person who didn't believe in planning, the one who bought things they didn't need to impress people they didn't care about. To reach your goals, you have to develop a new mindset, one that believes in long-term planning, delayed gratification, and smart investing. Now, this doesn't mean you have to leave everything behind. It doesn't mean you throw away everything you've learned or reject your past entirely. It means you have to evolve. You've got to take the best parts of your past, build upon them, and shed the parts that are no longer helpful. Just like a tree sheds its leaves to grow stronger, you've got to shed old habits and old thinking that limit your growth. But here's where most people get stuck. They're attached to who they used to be. The person they were feels comfortable, and they convince themselves that they can't let go. The truth is, to grow, you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to see yourself differently, to hold yourself to new standards, and to act accordingly. If you want different results, you have to be a different person. If you want to reach higher, you've got to rise to a higher version of yourself. This process isn't easy. It's not a one-time decision. Every single day, you're going to have to choose who you're becoming over who you were. You'll be faced with choices that challenge your old thinking. You'll be faced with situations that test your discipline, that demand you show up in ways you haven't before. It's those daily choices, those daily acts of discipline that lead to growth. It's not the one big change, it's the 1,000 small ones that add up to something monumental. Now let me tell you, when you outgrow an old version of yourself, the rewards are worth the effort. It may be uncomfortable to make the changes. It may be difficult to let go of old behaviors and beliefs. But when you begin to see the fruits of your labor, when you start achieving things you once thought were impossible, you'll realize that the price of progress was worth it. Think about it. The person who stays stuck in their old ways The person who refuses to grow, who clings to old habits and beliefs, is the one who watches life pass them by. They keep asking why they're not moving forward, why they're not reaching their goals. And the answer is simple. They haven't evolved. They haven't given themselves the chance to become someone new. But when you make the decision to let go of your old self, when you have the discipline to create new standards for yourself, new habits, new thinking, you're giving yourself permission to rise. And that's the most powerful thing you can do. You don't need permission from anyone else. You just need to decide that the new version of you is who you're going to be. And that decision, made in the quiet moments when no one's watching, is the one that will determine your success. So let me leave you with this. If you want to move forward in life, you've got to stop dragging your old self with you. You've got to outgrow who you used to be and embrace the person you're becoming. The life you want is on the other side of your evolution. And that's what progress is all about. It's about constantly upgrading who you are so that you can live the life you've always dreamed of. And that, my friend, is how you move forward, by outgrowing the old version of you and stepping into the new version of you that's ready for the future you deserve.